Yep, we're all ready and we're recording.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board. Today is August 20th, 20. Who's, okay, president of today's meeting are, Kate, could you call off the roll call?
Yep, we have Don Radke, Cynthia Carter, Dan Leary, Bob Haley, Julia Marshall, Lisa Tonzi, and Jeff Romano, and Tom Cantwell is not here today. And have I missed anyone? I'm sorry. He is unavailable today.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much. I'd like a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
So thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any changes, modifications? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Kate, on 115 Hampshire Road, we have no information.
Oh my goodness. Hold on. There should be. There is additional information.
Whoops, we lost
Get
him.
on.
Yep, hold on there. And I apologize for this.
Is
Have
that
you
applicant
you've lost
on
me?
the line?
Yeah, the applicant is on the line. For 115 Hampshire Road.
Yes.
The applicant is here, right?
Yes.
Is it Steve or who is it?
I'm the contractor I'm from Great Day Improvements.
And I have to apologize. I think Katie sent out the information, and let me see if I can share it with everyone. And I apologize for the.
Whoa.
Jason, how many hours would Cody have? Is he there? Okay.
Hold on just a second. Let me see. I should be able to pull this up for everyone. All right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. This is the revised information that was just sent to me. And
Yep, I think the revision should be the A22, I believe was in question.
A22
there
here.
of the angle wall.
Okay, there it is.
Well, that's A2.
That's A22 right there.
No, it's
No,
A2.
it says A2.
Oh, hold on. That on my. Sorry, let me move it down a little. Can you on your screen? You can't see the connection at house. Can you see that on the lower left-hand corner?
It's detail A22, sheet A2.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so there's A1.
There we go. A2.
And that's it. Can you see it?
You can see A2, but can you zoom out a little bit because I can't see the whole drawing.
Okay.
I can't see A2 too.
A22 is the detail.
A22 is the detail. Yeah.
Okay, why don't we let the applicant
Right.
walk us through it?
Okay, well, there was a question as to how we were going to attach at that angle wall. So this detail just shows that we're going to attach to the straight wall, and then it's just vinyl siding and everything. So we'll put flashing in there and then bring the siding over to the wall.
I think probably the question is more so, can we look at it in plan? Not just the detail, but also the plan connection of where you're suggesting this is happening.
So these are the drawings that they submitted.
Yeah. I don't know what view would you be looking for of it.
Okay, well, that shows it right there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the opposite end right on the corner.
It's right. This is what we're looking at right here.
Right. One of the questions is where the connection met on the, I guess the driveway side, there was a sliding glass door there. Is that still there? That seems to be opening into an angle wall. It's not going to work.
Right here.
Yeah. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, sorry, I had the mute on. Yeah, well, the door slides from the middle back, so that it's not, the wall isn't on a super sharp angle, so there's a whole patio they have there off on that side.
I see. I see. Okay.
Is there a site plan? No.
Let's see here.
The site photograph last week.
Yeah, there was one submitted, I know that.
There was a site aerial.
Oh, the other, I mean, I'm not so concerned about that connection. You know, he's showing a good detail. It's really what happens at the roof line. The connection,
Yeah, well,
you know,
let's
you've
go-
got an
Let's go to
overhang
the
of
roof line. You
existing.
had the detail there. Let's go to the roof line.
You have an overhang from the garage, I assume. And this is sitting underneath it.
Yes, we're mounting under the overhangs, and so that our overhang will just get cut on the angle, so it ties into that roof, and then all get flashed. But we're under the overhangs. We're not cutting the overhangs off or anything.
Okay.
Difficulty. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
The difficulty we're addressing here is that the valley of the existing addition ends right at the corner of the junction you're making. So in fact, the water will be shedded to this tight angled corner that you're connecting to. So there's going to be there'll be ice in there, there'll be water in there. And it's a poor architectural detail. The issue that we're struggling with here is that this was an addition to an original house, and this is an addition to an addition. And it's a package unit that's being tucked in a problematic way.
Well, we're under this overhang, so all that water is still going to go into the gutters like it does now and shed away. We're staying underneath all that. We're not getting into that valley.
Right, I understand.
We're not.
There is no overhang presently?
Yes.
The house has gutters on it, yes.
Board members to discuss how this impacts the character of the house. Let's just keep moving on this and do our charge, which is how does this impact the character of the house?
I mean, I think that there can be sort of a caution to the owner about the concern about that corner. But
yeah, that's a caution.
Correct.
Right. And a caution would be fine. But in terms of the materials and the construction of this addition on the addition, well, the character of the house.
Well, I can state that this is inappropriate to the character of the original house in the sense that it's a prefabricated sunroom, and that is the materials and the shape and the character of it is not in keeping with the original house.
Hey, do you have pictures of the original house? Do you have photos that you could put up?
Yep.
Please.
let's see here. Sorry?
I'm speaking
there-
to the applicant. Is there vinyl
Okay.
siding on the house now?
I actually stated that it was vinyl, but I actually believe this is clapboard.
I think it is.
Yep.
Sure.
Hold on, let me
Yeah,
find it.
I misspoke earlier. I
From
said
the
it was
earlier
vinyl,
discussion,
and when I'm
yeah.
looking at the photo, it looks like clapboard.
Right.
The detail provided shows the J channel as if it were vinyl, but
Oops, I'm sorry, 115. Here I am. The wrong, wrong application. 115 Hampshire. Here we go.
This is feeling that it's inappropriate due to its material. Does anybody else have?
I just want to see the photographs before
Let me see if I can find those photos for you. Yeah, hold on.
I think, scroll down in your file, it said photos.
Hold on. Let me see if this.
I think it's not doing anything for the house, but the addition that was already put on there is much in the same vein. It's just, and it's to the rear. I guess I could put up with it. I think the detailing is very poor. I'm not sure why you even needed to repeat these angles over and over and leave the house alone out in front, but
Yeah.
I don't have any serious.
It's been added to more than once.
Exactly.
I agree.
So we're looking at clapboard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
it's
looking
a
at Clabber.
clapboard sided house. Yep. And the applicant had said before, or at the previous meeting, they said that the side wall actually that'll be, or the knee wall on the addition would be clapboard rather than that foam, the foam paneling, so that they would, at least on the other side of this, would be copying the same siding, using the same type of siding.
Go back to that other picture where
This one?
yeah, okay.
Well,
I can't hear you.
speaking to the applicant, is the wall in fact
Don, you're garbled.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is the knee wall on the addition going to be Clabber?
Yes.
All right, so now go back to the proposed elevations of this greenhouse porch. Yeah, there's not much clapboard area anyway.
Yeah, it would just be.
Yeah. It would just be that one little section near the corner of the house there.
It's this one right
So
here.
on both sides, or no?
It's just on one side.
One side.
Yep.
Just on the one.
Well, as Dan said, this is an addition on an addition. It's going to make anything worse. If no member of the board any further comment, I need a motion to either approve or just.
I would just like to make one more comment if I could. No, I'm not reading this right.
To approve and then make your comments at that point.
All right.
I'll make a
Anybody
motion
make
to
a motion?
approve as submitted.
I'll second.
Thanks, Lisa.
So, any discussion, Bob?
No, I thought the plans and the elevations were incorrect, but they're correct. No, they're not. Oh, yes.
All right.
No, they're not correct. Hang on. Hang on.
It's been seconded.
I don't think that. Pardon?
Bob was looking.
My comment is I don't think it's appropriate to the house. Even though there was an addition, I think it is. It makes a bad situation even worse.
I don't disagree with that, Julie.
What did you say, Don?
I don't disagree with that.
Well, we've got a motion on the table. It's been seconded. Any other comments on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
We had a first and a second.
I'm opposed.
Yeah.
Hey,
So yes, I'll do Cynthia.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Dan. Dan.
Yeah, okay, I'm in favor.
Okay. Bob.
And
No. Julia.
No.
Lisa. Lisa.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And Jeff, you said it
Yes.
was your motion.
Correct.
So that's 4-2.
motion carries. Thank you very much.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Certificate of appropriateness, CA-20-17, 400 Sedgwick Drive, replacement roof.
Yeah.
Is that applicant on?
Yes.
Okay.
I did see her, Kelly.
Okay, as Kate said in her notes, we've got a application for a roof that is trying to replicate an original slate roof, but the existing roof is currently asphalt, it says?
It's not
Asbestos.
asphalt, it's asbestos.
It's asbestos.
Yeah. Is that Kelly, are you on you're on the caller, right?
Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I believe the current roof is maybe the original 90-year-old asbestos cement concrete composite shingles.
Okay.
They're in a state of decay where they're decomposing and breaking. And so one goal is to get rid of the asbestos, and then we're replacing it with a tile that both duplicates the architectural style of the slate look, as well as the coloration of the kind of that multicolored look that's now been faded and degraded.
So here are the images, as you can see.
Yep.
And then I believe it's actually, I think it's actually this color. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Looks like that's page 2. Page 2 of that PDF reflect the gatehouse slate color of that shingle.
Kate, could you go back to the existing roof?
Yep.
Okay. Could some close-ups, a couple of close-ups there?
Mm-hmm.
My question would be, is that step flashing, the copper step flashing remaining?
Yes, part of our project plan is to repair where all possible the copper flashing and then replace with necessary with identical copper flashing.
Good.
Any other comments from any board members?
no, the only comment I would add is I think you should be very careful with the selection of the new match. In other words, including putting up a sampling of the new asphalt shingles next in almost laid right on the roof, and stand back and look at it and get as close as possible. Be very careful. You're going down the correct route. Just be very careful to get the match as close to it as possible with this new material. Thank you.
It appears that the valleys on the existing roof are open valleys flashed with copper. Will open valleys be used in the replacement?
I'm taking a look at the project plan here. Yes, copper and edges of roof and copper valleys in all valley areas where it's existing as part of the existing plan.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving into a series of zoning referrals. And for the board's edification, our jurisdiction here is to comment. These are not certificates of appropriateness. The first one is a site plan, SR-20-02, 151-99 Solar Street.
Yeah.
Is that applicant on?
I think I saw Steve McKnight. Are you on?
Yes, I am on. Ashley from our office, and I am here. And I'm hoping that Vince from Keppinger Freeman is on.
We're here as well.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
And I just,
Floor is yours.
if I
Why
could,
don't you let us know what's going on here?
Okay, first off, how are we gonna do the drawings? Is that us or you, Kate?
I can give you control.
Okay, let us get control.
Let's see here. If I can figure out how to do that. Hold on. As I say every time.
Who's on the line?
Who's on? Assign.
Who's on from Keplinger Friedman? Rudy and who else?
This is Vincent Ryan.
Okay.
Okay. Steve? Have you taken control?
Yes. Can you see our screen?
Yep. You sure can.
Okay. I guess we'll start with the floor plans. And
okay. First of all, this is new construction on an empty lot, correct?
Correct. It's where it's at the corner of Division and Solar Streets, kind of the north part of Franklin Square. It's in the T5-2 overlay district for Franklin Square, the lakefront. Okay, the building is a 3-story build. Oh, do you want to? Why don't you put the? We're going to put the plans up. Sorry. Can you get there? Okay. So the building is a 3-story building, about 18,000 square feet per floor, 55,000 square feet total. The top 2 floors are residential. There's 17 units per floor. They're market rate units, 34 total. The first floor is office commercial. The client, and that's the actual client. It's Rapid Response. Dave Pida from Rapid Response is the owner's representative. And we haven't laid it out yet, but they'll be going at the first floor. And then there's a partial basement for storage and mechanical. The building is 294 feet long. It's a liner building. The first floor is elevated in the south section, which is to the bottom. It's located about 9'4" from the property line along Solar Street. And let's go to the elevations here. And we're not aware of any major or minor encroachments. Okay. Going to the elevations. Okay, in terms of materials, the brick is a soft red-orange brick that's found throughout Franklin Square. We've found a pretty good match at Paragon, a Glengarry brick that we're looking at.
Full brick?
Okay. Yes, full brick. And I'm sorry, I'm looking, the top elevation is Solar Street, which faces east, and the back is the rear elevation, which faces a parking lot, which faces west. So starting at the top, I just mentioned the brick. The building to the south, which is to the left, we're using a historic replica steel sash awning window, a Winco or an FCO. We're using monumental stone and or concrete steps with a suspended steel canopy above. The base is real limestone that we'll put on a sill, limestone base. The window sills, we're exploring a stone, but it's quite expensive. It'll probably be a precast concrete. We find both stone and concrete in Franklin Square. Moving to the glass link, I just want to say it's not an atrium, and we're not using a curtain wall. I don't know which are frowned on by the the guidelines, but it's rather a storefront system bearing on each floor. And then moving to the right, those are single hung windows with storefront below, and we're putting exposed steel headers above the storefront. The windows on the steel sash windows are wider than they are high. We find those, although that's flying in the face of the guidelines, we find the buildings, the precast buildings, cast in place buildings that were built after 1920, most of the windows are wider than they are high. So we'd like to use that simulated steel. So we'd like some relief there if possible. Flipping to the next page. Where are we? Oh, can you get the whole page up? This is just the north and the south elevations. We're showing the brick samples, which is the Glengarry that I mentioned, and a limestone base. One thing I wanted to point out on the lower elevation, which is the north elevation, the grades at the rear of the building are higher than the grades along Solar Street. And the reason being is we need handicap access, so we elevated it 24 inches, and it also helped us with drainage on the site. Flipping to the last page. This was really just to show different windows that are in Franklin Square, that in projects we've been involved with, and then also that we're recessing the window. Typically the window will be recessed about 8 inches. Let's see. We don't, just a couple of items. We don't anticipate any HVAC on the roof. We're hoping to use a geothermal ground source heat pump system for heating and cooling. And then the signage, we haven't had any discussions yet with the client regarding signage. We would hope to submit that when we get farther down the road. And that's about all I have. And I'd probably flip it to Vince if he wants to talk about the site at this point.
Okay, that's great. Before we do that,
hang on. I'm sorry, there's one more page. Let's go. Okay. These are transverse and longitudinal sections showing the layout where the residential units are and the commercial. Where also the owner would like a carport of some sort, and those will show up on the site plan, the locations of them, but we're suggesting a steel frame with photovoltaics above. And then the section off to the far right, just so everybody will know, the power poles are going to stay. We've been allowed to leave. Initially, they wanted them underground, but the fire chief said we could leave it above if we upgraded our construction type to 2A, which we did.
Okay. Just a comment going forward, you talked about signage. Just be sure that whatever you do, you come back here. I just want to put that there. Any other questions or comments from any board members?
Did we want to see the site plan?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you have the site plan there, Steve?
Yeah, Steve, if you want to move
I
it.
think Vince is going to bring it up.
I'll have to get control here. Oh, there it is.
I have it here. Is this the right sheet you want to talk about?
If you can go to either L2 or L3, it'd be fine.
Okay.
So as Steve said, that's the building on the lower side of the parcel, running north to south. Parking lot will be primarily behind the building. If you could zoom in, Ashley. Those solar structures will be on the north side of the parking lot. If I could request annotation.
He's going to point.
Solar structure here, solar structure here, here, and here. And then the rest of the carports will be the same steel structure without the solar arrays. Stormwater will be underground, and everything will pitch away. And we've already, as Steve said, spoken to fire chief, and we have approval on fire truck access and everything.
How many carports are there versus parking spots?
The carports cover all the perimeter parking spots. I don't have the number offhand, but just to circle, these are all carport areas.
Oh, okay. So all the parking other than the center island has carports.
Correct. The red is there's no carport, and then all perimeter parking has carport. And then
Okay.
I can switch to the different color here. These will be the solar ones.
Oh, I see. So not all of them have solar.
Yeah, there would be no point. There's no reason to put solar on the other ones. They don't face the correct direction.
And the high side of each of the carports in relationship to the sidewalk? High side is
Just the opposite. You'd enter from the high side and then drain onto the grassy areas.
so it's draining towards the property line.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question on access. I see on entry number 2, is there an entry number 1 that I'm just not seeing?
That's currently a mistake. We removed the second entrance. So the only entrance right now is this one.
Is which one?
Coming off Division.
Okay.
So it's an in out, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments for questions from any board members?
Is there any landscaping that's happening in the back area towards the post office? It's not shown. I mean,
If you could switch to L3, actually.
Okay.
I had a question regarding the solar panels, if that's appropriate.
Sure, go ahead.
Very simply, do you have any, I think it's a great thing to use solar panels for car shelters in upstate New York. I would recommend, however, being very careful about the detailing and color selection. I would suggest the totally black panels with a black trim to reduce the amount of bright aluminum in your overall complex. What are your views on that?
Bob, I'd be fine with that. The carport was just a suggestion at this point, but the windows would be black, and so I wouldn't be adverse to the steel and the framing members being black with a dark solar panel.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to set a standard for the whole area. And I know on my own panels, I wish I'd used the black ones because they disappear into the roof much better.
We could indicate those being black solar panels.
Thank you.
To Julia's question, there is some landscaping in the two western corners. With T5, we're allowed to park pretty much up to the property line, but we can provide some landscaping along that western property line. Otherwise, the rest of the property lines do have vegetation.
Okay.
yeah, I guess I would suggest it. I mean,
Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
it appears, I mean, is the property adjacent, is that the post office property?
No, there's kind of an empty lot, and then it's the post office. So there is.
Yeah, so if possible to add some landscaping. It doesn't look like you have a whole lot of space there, but it would be nice to have a buffer.
Yeah, we can get some stuff in there. Not a problem.
Because if a car parks and the headlights are going towards the other property, depending on what happens there at some point.
Of course. Yeah, we'll look into getting something in there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Am I assuming that our comment is going to be a favorable comment?
I would agree. I think that the fenestration of the building, the mass of the building is appropriate.
Okay. All right, Kate, do you have what you need? The board is in approval of this?
Yep.
Not approval, but in support?
In support of, yep.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Great project.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Moving on, project site review, PR-17-34M1, 476, 480 South Salina Street. This is a project that was in front of us before, and what was approved was not what was done. And Randy Crawford is here to speak on behalf of the client for some mitigation discussion. Is that correct, Randy?
That's correct.
How you doing, Randy?
Good, and you? Morning, everyone.
Good.
Let me see if I can cede back control here. Stop sharing as soon as you start sharing. Okay, here we go. Let me get, I gotta get to your, here we go. This is it. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Randy, it's yours.
Okay. Let me see. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to read the letter or any points made. The gist of it is that the owners got themselves into some hot water on a variety of levels, and they asked me to come in and try to help them get through it. And we've got Nick Altieri on board also for some code compliance support. What Kate is showing now, and does it read larger on your screens than it does on mine? I guess it doesn't really have to.
I can make it bigger.
That's probably good. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Scroll it down to there. Well, up, down, maybe.
So we can see both elevations. Thank you.
Yeah. So upper is what was approved. Lower is what was as built. We got involved barely 2 months ago when everything that you see as built was already built. We've been dealing, as I said, with the code issues since then. Just got into the PSR aspects of it. The explanation, and I had to get explanations for a lot of the decisions from the owner, from Tom Goodfellow, not having been involved, and things are being kind of covered up by now. So I tried to outline it as cleanly as I could, including asks on behalf of the owner. Looking at the rear, this is the front, so I'm going to shift over to the front reference. The board approved second and third floors of 5 windows, 4 of them with balconies, paired casements over single glazed up above. What they ran into, as I explained, was large precast panels extending up 2 stories on the front, trying to cut through those between the reinforcing in the panels and between the panels, I'm told were beyond daunting, which is why they dropped out the left and the right windows on the second floor. Similarly, the second floor windows were narrowed up because of the vertical steel in the 2 stories worth of original or previous facade, and found a 3-foot high beam that spanned the entire width of all of those storefronts, which caused them to revise the height and location of their second floor windows. And then they brought the third floors down to be a consistent height. For that reason, they have a different window configuration. The cornice itself initially was fairly narrow. What they ended up doing was put a taller one that mimics, though not necessarily intentionally, but it does reasonably mimic the terracotta ones that you see on other buildings up and down the street. They do have their little bracket features, which do not show on the as-built elevation. Those are painted a dark color, dark brown, black, and really stand out awkwardly, I think, from the creamy, almost terracotta color of the rest of the cornice. So our proposal there is to paint those brackets and just blend them in with the terracotta, in quotes, cornice treatment. The storefront, as I indicated, you can see what was approved. They basically moved some things around. at the first floor level as they were getting nibbles and such interest on tenant options. They did end up extending the storefront down to the ground instead of putting a brick bulkhead underneath. But the storefront to the ground is pretty consistent. If you look at the photograph of the as-built, that's actually more representative.
Yeah, let me, I'll get that.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the typical treatment. I mentioned that 3-foot tall beam going the full width. That forced them to put the second floor windows higher than initially intended, which would have left a pretty wide bare brick space between the window sills and the top of the storefront. So they went ahead and did what they were seeing on other parts of Salina Street. They put a band across the top, paneled band. The Whitlock name there that you see was originally approved to be up just below the cornice. They now had space where they could take that down, since the most of the buildings downtown don't have names up high on the facade. So this made it a little bit more consistent. Let's see, I can jump back, I guess, to, yeah, on the upper photo here, you can see the standout bracket features up on the cornice. And let me,
And you're proposing you would basically paint
the brackets out. The shadowing, the darkness that you see on the actual upper part of the cornice is shadows. It's not paint. So there would still be a little bit of shadow play, including from the brackets, but they just wouldn't be these spots of black, alternating along the length of the cornice. I think that was it for the Salina Street frontage. Anybody want to ask questions about this before we shift to Clinton?
Yeah, Randy, were the structural conditions that you described with the precast panels different on the two ends where the windows were omitted than they were in the three center?
No, as I said in the letter that I submitted, it was essentially a hardship. They didn't need the windows in those locations, and going through 12 inches of reinforced precast was proving to be pretty expensive.
But they'd done that three times. They had done that 3 times.
They'd done it in the middle. They'd done the upper floors. Those were no problem. They dropped down, and some of us even can remember the variations of the Goldberg's front, including that 3-4 story arcading effect that they had at one time. It had a lot of working over. What the owners told me was that, and they were sincere, I felt. What seemed like a relatively simple project going in, every time they opened something up, they found strange structural issues that they had to accommodate. They needed more structure here. They had to, build walls to carry certain things there. So they were behind schedule and way behind budget when they started to run into the facade issues, which is partly why they decided to skip those 2 windows.
But the point is that they, for the sake of avoiding that additional cost, they really screwed up the elevation.
Actually, given the various elevational treatments on that block, I'm not sure that we could say that it screwed it up.
They screwed it up from what we had approved.
It is different from what was approved.
Can I comment one? I have a
Sure.
comment.
Sure.
I mean, I know what's done is done, but the as-built is far more of a departure than what was approved. It's stunning, quite honestly. I'm wondering if that's something that should have come back to us as it was in a work in progress, rather than now saying, here's what we have.
And I guess my comment would be, I don't know what is our recourse, because I don't really like to accept what's done is done.
No, I don't either, but I'm trying to understand the whole process. But when I look at photo 3 and I look at what we approved, it's not even close. Not even close. So that's my comment.
I think the bigger issue there would be, had they come in and put the as-built condition in front of you, how unacceptable would it have been? It's clearly it's different from what was approved, but
Yeah.
if this had ended up on the table, would it have been approved?
I would say no. I'll have to pass the members.
Randy, let me ask you a question on those two quote unquote missing windows. What's behind there? And I mean, is it possible to put just a window fixture, a blank window in there?
The left side is the front stair, the exit stair. Okay. And on the right side is a dwelling unit that has a window already. The farthest right of the second floor windows serves that one dwelling unit.
Yeah, but there were other solutions that could have happened. I mean, one could have recessed the brick an inch as if it was a window.
There. This is actually half-inch brick because of the proximity of the panels to the property line. So they didn't really have, without carving into the concrete, they didn't really have the ability to project out very much.
Something could have been done in terms of scoring it, you know, and also the fact that the second floor windows are narrower than the windows above. To me, it was pretty flagrant on their part to just go ahead and do this without consulting, obviously knowing that this is not what was approved.
Right.
No argument there. That was the first thing I told them.
I agree totally.
Far from.
We have two issues here. One is, what is the remediation or the consequences of building something that was not approved? And I believe that's not with us. I think that's with code enforcement. Secondly, going to what Randy said, we have this project here, the as-built. Would we approve it? Do we approve it? And Kate, if we say we disapprove, this is a project site review, then that goes to zoning, correct?
It goes to the planning commission. It will go. The comment. The LPB is tasked with providing comment to zoning, and then the planning commission will take those comments into account as it considers.
Okay, so at this point, so we can be organized about this, on the front elevation, if I understand the board correctly, the comment starts out with the obvious that the owner should have come back to us before just doing things.
Someone's got to go on mute. Someone's got to go on mute because I can't hear you.
Yeah, somebody's got to go on mute. Okay, so the first comment, of course, is that we are very disappointed that the applicant did not follow the process and procedure and come back to the LPB before they just went ahead and built. Second comment, that as far as what is there as built, first comment that I've heard from a board member is minimally the narrower width of the second floor windows as opposed to the third floor windows is problematic. What else?
I'd like to make a comment about the cornice. It is really distracting. And I think that even if it's painted all the same color and it's that light color, it's still going to stand out in a way that is not pleasing from the street. And I think it would be better if it was a darker color like it was supposed to be originally.
Okay, so that's the second comment on the as-built facade, which I would agree with. Yeah.
I also ask, it looks like, it appears from the photograph, you think this is not real brick, this is face brick?
Correct.
It looks.
What's going on above the third floor windows where I'm seeing different colors, and it looks almost like it's panelized?
Yeah.
It's very inconsistent.
I honestly don't know anything about that. I can see what you're seeing in the photograph, and I can ask him if there's any reason that. I don't have.
From a construction point of view and from an aesthetic point of view, that's totally unacceptable from my point of view, because it looks like it's a different color.
Different type of brick.
It looks like it's been patched.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so our comment on the front elevation is that we would not have approved this as-built for the specific, to start with, for several of the specific reasons that we just mentioned.
Can we also go to the drawings again to look at what was approved, because we've not even mentioned the windows on the first floor.
Right.
The windows, the doors, and that's
The transom.
And the balconies.
As from my point of view, it's balconies don't, the lack of the balconies don't detract as much as the rhythm on the storefronts.
Agreed.
And the rhythm of the windows, as well as the door openings and their position.
Right. Okay, so we'll add that to the comments that, you know, we would not have approved based on those comments to start with.
Right.
Okay.
I had one other question, if I could, since Randy's here. Randy, from your investigations of this, were these precast panels possible to be removed from the very beginning and do a conventional stud brick veneer facade?
I have no idea about that.
Okay. All right, so our comment is we would not have approved, as I said, the as-built for the several of the reasons we mentioned. To move this along, Randy, can you go on to the other elevations?
Sure. You got the drawings here. You can probably grab a quick mental image of the drawings of the approved version, and then shift over to the two shots of the as-built. Photographs. So what they have here is the upper sheet. They, as I said in the letter, they moved the two entrances in towards the center so that they could accommodate two separate tenants if need be. They had an incident of vandalism fairly early, and for that reason, they raised the bottom level of the storefront glazing, which I'm afraid you can't see very much in this shot. You can just see it peeking out between the trucks.
Yep.
Right.
The one with the most jarring is the lower shot. If you can scroll up, the baby blue in there, and this is definitely not what was approved. It was approved as the face brick, and there was a different configuration of sorts to the storefronts and the doors. Expeditious request was to paint it the charcoal gray, so it just drops into the shadows. After that, the owners will need to hear what the board would prefer to see.
I would start out by saying the same thing, that we would, on these elevations, again, re-comment that the owner should have come back to the board before they just did things. As to specific comments, any board members have some specific comments? I think minimally painting that is minimal.
I think my specific comment is that this west elevation would have been approved, and because it shows good design, proportion, and the color is an easy change, yes, to the gray and the blue area. And to go back.
Can you zoom it out so we can see both elevations, the approved and what was built?
Yep.
And to just continue and finish my comment that the west elevation could have been approved, would have been approved based on good design standards, and the east elevation on Salina Street would not have been approved based on poor design standards.
I don't agree in terms of how the entries for the two different tenants was designed or detailed, nor the entry and window where the baby blue is in terms of head height for the windows. I mean, that's inconsistent with what was approved, and I would not approve this.
Yeah.
It's totally inconsistent. They took head height of the window, off to the right, and the door height, and then, you know, put in a panel. I mean, this drawing shows a canopy, but the actual photograph shows a panel with the lettering for loft. And we're supposed to understand that that datum line, you know, is equivalent.
Yep. Any other comments by any board members? So again, the comment on the Clinton elevation was that the owner should have come back to us before they had done any work, and that would be correct. Would the board agree that the elevation with some changes may have been approvable, but we would have had to speak more to the detail?
Yes.
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 Okay. All right, Randy, I have one question. What's going on with the south elevation, which isn't on here at all?
The south elevation was not referenced in the material that Kate sent. You're referring to the western part of the south elevation or the eastern part?
Both. I just want to know, because we don't know what changes were made from, because we did talk about that.
Yeah, their drawings included that.
Yeah,
Their drawings included that, and I know that if I remember correctly, there were going to be some windows punched in, and the wall was basically going to be darker black.
I did not dig into this because I didn't realize that it was a question for the board. I do know off the top of my head that the western part, for all intents and purposes, is a charcoal gray, which was partly why the suggestion was made to obscure the one-story part along.
Okay.
The eastern part, there are existing window openings. It's what faces the market.
Right.
And I honestly don't know what the proposal is for there. I'll have to go back and ask.
And
what did the board
comments, Kate?
What did the board approve or review?
Well, here's the thing: is the as-built versus they match pretty closely. In other words, I did this. It wasn't highlighted because the concern was for these two elevations rather than the south facing.
Okay.
Elevation.
It should be stated that this facades treatment needs to be reviewed by this board. And the reason is that I know from the Salt City Market that they have a mural on this wall in their renderings.
And they actually, I had forgotten about that, Bob. In passing, it was mentioned that, I don't know, a week or so ago, that they were talking with the market, with the Allen Foundation about a mural, which would be a complete different ballgame in many different ways, of course.
Yeah. I would just make a comment in our comments that the board is interested in the final determination on the south wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Thanks, Don.
Okay. Anything else? Randy, you were put into a tough spot there.
Thank you, Randy.
I figured it out going in. Listen, thanks for your time, everyone. And Kate, some comments will be coming back that we can give to the owners.
Good to see you, Randy.
All right, and you guys too. Thanks. Keep it up.
Yep.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, moving on. Project site review PR-20-214 Water Street. Okay. Mr. Trasher there.
I am here. Good morning, board.
Morning. Morning.
Kate, do you kind of want a summary things first of all? Because I know that from the
I can give you
versus some clarifications. Could you just go through that? For the
Yeah. Yes, I can. So
I'm asking Kate to talk about the notes that you sent out.
Could everyone mute themselves to not talking at the moment because there's a lot of feedback. Okay, just so you all know, this is the background that the plans were approved in early 2019. I got through the planning commission and were approved. However, due to circumstances, the project didn't move forward. So within a year's time frame. So the during that time, there were some alterations to the design, which I outlined in the staff report, and so it was zoning's recommendation that they actually the changes were substantial enough, the size, some materials, they were substantial enough that zoning wanted a brand new, fresh project site review rather than have it as a modification to the original application. So we now have, or I submitted to you, sent to you a version of the drawings, but it became apparent that the drawings in the application were not matching, and that the application said that there would be 7 stories of a 7-story building, but the drawings were showing an 8-story building, and there's some other issues. So I got back to James about this, and then James, you submitted these drawings, these revised drawings, yesterday. So these are the board has not seen these ones yet. This will be the first time you've seen them, and I can give you control, James, if that makes sense.
Yeah, or do you want us to share our screen? Because Brian Bouchard, who's on the phone.
Why don't you go ahead and share your screen? You can do that. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
So
and then can walk through. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah. So board,
project site review.
Okay. So Chairman, you want me to go through stuff now?
Yes, please.
Okay, Chairman and board, we thank you for having us. So as Kate said, since we got the initial approval from your board and the Planning Commission, things have changed a little bit in the world we live in. And so going through the economics between contractor, equity partners, et cetera, the 10-story building that was previously approved, our request is to go down to an 8-story building. And I'll just reorient you: Erie Boulevard, Franklin, Water. The footprint is the same. A couple of the components in the building have changed. The initial numbers that we got from the internal parking, the automated parking folks, that they budgeted us out for, and then when we started to go through the final construction numbers, their numbers ratcheted up significantly, where we were at $15,000 per space, and then they were going up to over double that amount when we were getting construction numbers. So we have come back and we are proposing to do a single ground floor level parking in the area where you can see the hand moving. We would still have our lobby coming in off of Water Street, going to the residential pieces. And then on the end of the building, we would still have our retail spaces that would face Franklin. Our curb cut is on Erie Boulevard. The plans that were submitted mistakenly showed a connection to water, but through all the past conversations, and that was just lost in conversation between our office and Tim Bivens, who is now the project architect. So Brian, you want to flip to the elevations? So elevations look very similar to what they were previously. There was a change in building material. The light color used to be a Lucabon panel, but working between the structural engineer, architect, and the waterproofing of the building, it was determined that the interface between the brick, the concrete, horizontal components of the project, there was some tough waterproofing components, and it was to determine that an entire brick building would be better. So we have 2 different colored bricks, same window treatments, same cornices, all those other things that you went through previously with our design group, we have implemented. So we're back here to get your feedback and comment. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say. If there's things
I have a question.
Go on.
Can you scroll back down, please? Back down. Okay, if you're looking, I'm curious, can you see my pointer or no? I'm trying to, why on the top two levels does the brick not extend all the way up to make it look like a panel rather than a cutout at the top? Does that make sense?
Are you right there where the hand or our hand is right now?
Over to the left a little bit. Yeah, why are those two floors in a different material? Why is the brick not extended all the way to the top? I guess is my question.
You're talking the roof cornice line or where? Because the entire facade is brick.
Right, the color maybe then is what I'm talking about.
The color, the color is the same color treatments as before. There was talk about the verticality and the horizontal run. So the last time we were with the board, this is what was decided upon in terms of the look that they desired, the sort of for massing and scaling of the building. So we sort of came up with you guys, over multiple meetings a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, one of the things that's there because of building code, we did have windows and balconies facing Clinton Square. We had to remove those, going through stuff with Chief Davis and the codes department. They put us into a building code violation where we would have to go seek approval from the state board if we were trying to have windows in that location. So it was easiest to remove, and we continued to sort of the same treatments on those ends, minus the windows and balconies.
Okay, one thing I just want to go back to, this is Dan. I think I heard you say that the curb cut entrance to the garage is on Erie Boulevard, not on Water Street.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. I see it right there. All right. And it's in this, okay. It's right in the middle. All right. Any other comments by any other board members?
Oh, yeah, just to
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry. How are you handling the street level facades of the parking garage on both sides?
We've continued with the windows. And previously we had an area where there was a walkway behind where you could change and put like, I don't know, mannequins or stuff in the windows. We would still look to make those areas aesthetically pleasing. Right now, they've gone to screens to eliminate mechanical ventilation. So we do have this area with window treatments and screening in between, if you're looking at this parking space 11 and 21 and 1 and 10, because of trying to eliminate the mechanical ventilation system.
Well, sure. Can I ask another question? I mean, this is an area of significance, obviously, to your building design, and you do need, I think, 100% screen. This is an area where your design detailing to do interest in your screen technique. It might be a pattern at the lower level up to your transom height but you said windows. You don't mean glass windows, do you?
No, on the end of the buildings with the retail in the lobby, we continue with the storefront windows. And then in the middle, a pattern that is consistent with the storefront windows, which would be screening of the vehicles.
Well, that would make sense. If your mullion system stayed the same, that would make sense. And then the infill screen patterns, there's so much you can do with design screens that will give that interest for pedestrians.
Right. That screening is going to be open screening, correct?
Yes, it's apparent. They'll need a larger area of ventilation. But I mean, that's an area where your project can take a significant step forward to enhance the pedestrianscape of those parking garages. It should highly recommend you put some serious design thought into those screens on both sides. Secondly, the overhangs that are, the sunscreens that are there aren't really needed. However, they're a physical interest. So I would just spend your design time there in terms of that street facade. It's very important.
Sure.
The where you were talking about the screening, if you were to look into those spaces, what would you see from the sidewalk?
Cars.
Car.
Yeah. I have a real problem with that.
Well, I guess, Mike, let me go further in the screening. I mean,
This is a residential. This should be a streetscape that is pleasing, beautiful, with plantings and things that people will feel good about. If I walked by there and looked over and saw cars, I think that takes away from the beauty of the area. That's my comment. I'm going to mute out.
no, that's a very good comment. The screening does not have to be 100% transparent, translucent. You need it for ventilation, but a percentage of 50% opening or even 80% opening can still have a pattern in the screening with stamped metal panels, not just wire frames, or for that matter, wire grid frames that change the transparency. At nighttime, the light level should be low enough not just to be a blazing white garage. It has to be high enough for security and low enough not to be just a white mercury vapor type of parking garage blasting people off the sidewalks. It's an important area. It's a very important area.
So it would look similar to the building on the corner of Fayette and Franklin. When you walk by, you look to the right and you see cars, right, and you see parking spaces.
Dan, were you going to say?
Yeah, just for clarification, the drawings appears to show a different treatment on 3 of those 7 openings in the center portion. Are they all the same?
Yes.
They're all the same. It's just the drawing.
Yes.
And
well, the drawing, that's where you see through the building. The first 4 on the left, you see through to the other side. The first on the right, you see the core of the building.
Yeah.
In shadow.
But the treatment within the opening is the same.
Correct.
And I agree with Bob. There are a lot of things that can be done with the screening to mitigate the appearance of the vehicles. And also, nobody's mentioned anything about landscaping outside, which doesn't affect the ventilation factor at all.
And is screening. Yep.
Well, I have a question about datum lines in terms of where those sunscreens are located. It appears like the construction point or the cabling back to the building from the sunscreens is the only thing that kind of aligns with the building next door in terms of a datum line. And we had lots of discussion about how the geometry and datum lines of this building were designed, and something's changed.
Okay. Are you saying?
Do we have the original of what we approved?
Yeah, that's in your packet.
I didn't get the packet, so I'm. It's only on
I don't think
computer.
what we have here is what was previously approved.
Hey, Brian, do you have access to that?
I'm trying to pull it up right now.
Julia, what's your comment again? That the building's not aligned with the adjacent building?
Well, if you're trying to align that datum line at the first level and you're using the sunscreens, it's not working for me because the only thing that kind of aligns is the cable that comes back to the window.
I'm confused from your comment. I'm looking at the building's footprint aligning with the adjacent building footprint.
So Julia, we just brought up, so Brian Bouchard in my office is going back and forth between previously approved.
Can you put them side by side? Or top and bottom?
Well, there is no datum line where Julia is talking, where in the approved,
I see what you mean.
Right, that's what I'm saying is we lost that. The sunscreens are over the window, and I think we were higher before.
I see what you mean. Yeah, you're talking about elevation. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Okay, there's one, and if we can get the one on the right, then
there you go.
And that northwest, can we go to the other side of it, where it meets? There you go. Perfect.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
it makes an attempt at it, but it's pretty weak.
Yeah, I think it's too thin, it's too small. While we're pondering that, I'm looking at your eastern elevation. Leave that up there. You don't have to go there because we've got drawings. The eastern elevation where you took out the balconies and the windows, and going back to Lisa's earlier comments about the color of the brick in various locations of this elevation. There's something that just doesn't read well in the light patterned, light colored brick on the east facade. And then the amount of light brick on the top two floors. It just, I don't know.
Ryan, can you go to that?
Well, let's leave that.
Okay.
Can you leave
Throw
that?
this out. I just want to throw out to the rest of the board. In the new plan, there is a lot of light colored brick. And Lisa mentioned on the south elevation, the amount of light colored brick. And I'm also adding the eastern elevation and the light colored brick, and then the western elevation. Just wondering what the rest of the board thinks, if that should be dark colored brick on both east and west end. And then
makes no sense. And if
Yeah, at least you're.
that would be, it would.
Yeah, I agree that. Agree. Yeah, I agree. Lisa, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead. Thanks. I've been looking at this. We all have been seriously for a long time, and I think Lisa's instincts are correct, and Don's also. The artificiality of, or the seemingly artificiality, the seemingly arbitrary light dark patterns are a concern to all of us. I know that when your application came in as a seven-story building, I was immediately pleased that it was shorter. And as I began to look at this possibility, I also relooked at these light brick areas. I think based on the building massing that the lower in your current application, that if we took out all the light brick below the 6th floor line and went to a full, block building of one brick looking more like a warehouse of the period, that the upper level could be light, completely light for the whole area. And it would look like what was done through the period. In the sense of sometimes buildings had additions, just like the building that Kate's in. It was actually a 3-story, 4-story building, then it was added 3 stories on top of that. So what I'm advocating for here is a consideration of the light brick not looking so arbitrary, and that's an unfair word. But if the entire first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6 floors were all a dark color brick, and the entire upper level were all light color, comes into the block massing of original construction of this period. That's my suggestion.
why don't we do this to move on, because we do have a long agenda here. And see if the board agrees with this.
Just a comment, Don, if I could say, I agree with Bob historically, but I disagree with the reduction in the amount of light brick. I think that the brick color pattern tends to reduce the bulk, massive appearance of this as a building on this site. And I kind of like the way it's broken up.
Okay. All right. Well, then our comment, since this is comment, that we comment in the conditional affirmative, see if the board agrees with this. They're stating that there is some discussion about the brick coloring that we would like to continue to have, and that on the first floor, north and south elevation, we want to see a much more detailed treatment of that screening and any planting, and possibly strengthening that datum line.
Okay.
Can I add, it's not just the datum line over the first floor, but I think also look at the relationship of the datum line just above.
Okay.
So the datum line at the first floor and the second floor, Julia?
Yes, please.
Okay. First and second. Okay.
So Kate, do you have that?
I just want to make it clear, I have a dissenting vote. I would be very pleased to see a 7-story building and not an 8-story building being a substantially better project for this block. I also think that to the developer side of this, I realize the cost issues, everything that you're dealing with. But let's not have to go through this again for another reduced building. Maybe you want to consider your final application being this one as a 7-story, not an 8-story project. That's just a comment.
That's just one board member's comment. Okay, because we did approve a 10.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't disagree with Bob. I think a 7-story building would change the appearance significantly.
Yeah, I do too.
I'll say that I greatly appreciated the reduction in height of the building along with its massing.
Yeah, right.
Don, may I make one more comment? I promise I'll leave it at there.
Yeah, please.
I have to just really push for my concern of that first floor. And I know we've talked a little bit about it, but if you go to the Amos building itself and that block, it's beautifully done in the front. All the spaces are well decorated and very clearly pleasing to the eye. I don't see that in this addition.
Right, and I agree with you, and I think the entire board agrees with you, Lisa, that first floor treatment with the whether screening, whether planting has to be addressed in a much better way than it is.
And that corner also, Bob, down on the corner past the parking area, we have no idea what that's going to be. And that right there where you have your pointer.
Yeah, that's a retail space.
It's retail space.
Okay.
And that's
both corners,
yeah,
Erie and Franklin, and Erie and Water, or Water and Franklin are both 2 retail spaces.
All right. Okay, just want that for the record. Thank you.
Yeah.
But the board is very seriously concerned about what's going to happen on the elevation, on the water and street side and the parking lot. We don't like what we see here, and we have to see something more and better.
Thank you.
Don't.
Don, can I say I'm also concerned about the end elevation? We haven't talked about it much, but the relationship of that one arch where nothing on the building actually, I think it's probably a nod to the Amos building, but I think it's arbitrary.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's one above it and on the east side as well.
Yeah.
Right, and now that the screenings are just over the windows, it makes for an uncomfortable. It's
It's not necessary.
Well, I'm looking at the door in relationship to that space, and they need to just take a look at that.
Okay.
Of how
that's your comments, Kate.
Yeah.
All right. So, Kate, can you get those comments to the applicant, and hopefully we'll see something more. And we want.
Okay. So that's my question. So that what the board is asking then is for the applicant to come back maybe in 2 weeks at our next meeting, if that's possible.
Whenever we do want the applicant to come back. Correct.
All right, with a design that with more detailed information about what's happening in particular on the ground floor, and then addressing, and if it's possible to possibly present a couple different color schemes based on what has been suggested today, so that the board can get a feel, that would be really helpful. And then also and we're of course talking about the datum lines and so forth. That Julia
datum lines and the arches. Okay.
And then finally those arches, whether or not that
you got it.
Is a necessary component for those conditions. Okay.
Can I just add one thing? I mean, to be fair, it's really hard for us to assess the colors of the masonry. The rendering, given the renderings, we really need to see an actual sample in terms of color, and that's the hard part about doing this, on WebEx, is we're looking at a color rendering, and depending on your your screen that you're looking at it, the color could be completely different from what I'm looking at.
Yep.
We have samples that we can submit.
Okay, that'd be great.
Materials
That'd be great.
best. Yep.
Folks,
Yeah,
we gotta
'cause-
move on. We have to
Okay.
move on. Okay.
Thank you.
Nate, you'll get those comments and we'll see the applicant again.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trasher. Okay, moving on, PR-20-19, 217 Montgomery Street. Is that applicant still here?
Yes, Terry Horton.
Okay, thank you for your patience.
And I think Joe Perino is also, there's Joe.
Oh, Joe, yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Joe.
I'm Joe Perino within Architects, and sure you're all familiar with the Hills building. This building was built almost 100 years ago with one enclosed fire stair in the center. It also has one fire escape ladder down the center of down to the center inside corner. Right now, that ladder extends down to the roof. You can see the roof of the second floor in the back. It extends down there, and then you traverse the roof and come down. They used to come down a ladder down in that back corner. The ladder was removed. We do not have any photographs of that ladder, but we know it was there because the bolts are still in the wall in the back corner there. So we wanted to replace the ladder, but the City of Syracuse Building Department asked us to put a stair in instead because the code does not allow for newer ladders. We want a stair to grade there, even though the rest of the remainder of it from all the way to the top floor is currently a ladder. So we designed a very simple 3-foot stair. We tried to keep it simple, and it comes off that second floor and traverses down towards Fayette Street. The owner owns both properties. There's 2 separate properties. The building's on one property, and the parking lot behind it and on the north side of it is owned by the same owner. And so he has created a easement to go with the building so that they'd always have this egress to the public right of way.
That was my question. Has that easement been filed and accepted?
It has been filed, yes, and it's part of your packet.
Yeah. Okay.
So we ask your approval to continue this fire escape to grade.
Can you go back to the picture of the building?
Sure.
So with that, there would be no changes in window openings or covering of window openings. It looks like it would just fit right between.
That is correct.
And go right here.
So what are you doing about covering and snow removal and all that?
Well, we try to keep it simple. In all the years that we've had, no one's really ever gone down that ladder all the way down, and so it's really not used.
Well, you know what I mean. It's unfortunate reality that these things are not shoveled. It's typical, and I just didn't know whether you would consider a roof over it, a shelter of any kind.
Is there going to be an open tread, a metal open tread?
Yeah.
Yes. There would be a metal grating so that the snow would, and rain, obviously the rain would go through it. It would not be a solid tread. It would be, similar to a mechanical system stair.
Yeah. Yeah. I would prefer not seeing it covered and just leaving it an open stair and simple as possible.
Less mass,
Yeah. Any thought, how is they handling security in terms of now there's a stair? I mean, yes, there was a ladder someone could climb up, but is there any provision for that?
Well, right now you can see in that corner there's a door that actually swings out in that the louvers. There's a door right there, yes, and that we're going to actually put a panic device on that is locked always from the outside and always open from the inside. So we're basically creating the security point where it is now.
Joe,
Okay.
this is Rick with PEMCO. In anticipation of the new stair going in, we have just installed some new security cameras as well to cover that future exit as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that you're going to put some panic hardware on that. I mean, and that solves the issue right there. So.
Okay, again, our jurisdiction here is to comment. I'm assuming that the board is in agreement with this.
Just one question. One question, Joe. It looks like the height of the railing going down the stairs is 3 foot 6 inches. And the intermediate rails are set between that. It appears that there are 2 intermediate rails. Would you consider going to, this is just a safety issue, consider going to a 4 foot high top rail with a 3 foot high handrail that was unbroken by the verticals?
Yes, we could consider that. I'm just wondering why you're saying 48 inches. I mean, usually guardrail height is either 44.
44, all right.
Okay. So you're saying you'd like to have a guardrail height all the way down with a handrail on the inside?
With a handrail that is not interrupted by the vertical members. It's interior and bracketed out. Maybe you already have that, but it doesn't show it that way.
No, it isn't. It's a simple 3-pipe rail design.
You might be required to do it as a guardrail plus a handrail anyway by code.
Yeah, I think so.
It's possible.
Yeah, well,
as a fire escape, we're not.
Okay.
I mean, as a stair, I think you might have to do the guardrail anyway, and you're right, 42, I think is minimum for the guardrail, and then you have handrail at 36. But don't quote me on it. Check the new code.
we can do that, but in the existing building code, it's very specific on what a fire escape has to have, and we've met it pretty much. And it only needs 2 inches wide. We're making it 36 inches wide. All the risers and runs, treads, all fit within the code. I could send, in the existing building code, there's a whole paragraph on fire escapes, and we've designed it, exactly to those standards.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that it doesn't comply with the code. I'm just discussing. You'll have to admit this is a longer than normal single stair run in a fire escape, and as an exit procedure for safety's sake, there's a big difference between a 42-inch high guardrail and a 48-inch high guardrail. There might be some compromise, and an unbroken handrail makes a huge difference.
We would definitely consider that, and we can make that change for sure.
I guess the only comment I make is it comes down to semantics. So this is being considered a fire escape, not an exit stair?
Correct.
Okay, so that, I mean, I'm not going to go back and look at the code for you, but,
Okay, well, the code issue is the applicant's responsibility,
Right.
but
Exactly.
concept and scale and size and material, the board is okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, any other comments? If not, I'll move on. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're at a pre-discussion development meeting on 910 Madison Street. Who is here for the applicant? Kate, who is online with
James Trasher.
James, yeah.
Just, anybody else?
Yeah, I got a whole group of folks, so I'll introduce everyone. So does Kate need to introduce anything, and then I can get?
No, I so only just as Don said that this is really just the first discussion on sort of the conceptual level of what's being proposed, and the actual C of A will be down the line. The decision on the C of A will be down the line. So you go for it, James.
Okay, so board, thank you. So with me from the development team, I have Mark Riley and Aaron Stang. From the engineering side, it's myself and Brian Bouchard from my office. And from the architect. We have John Harding from Cube 3. I'll give a brief, and we respect your time here. We're at 10:10. It's been a long meeting. So as Kate has said, this is the first of many, and we just wanted to do this to reintroduce. So we're going through 2 processes right now on this project. We have an application in to the city for some variances with the Board of Zoning Appeals, which will be handling those approvals and the seeker process. In conversation with Kate and Heather Lemondola, it was felt to just have some preliminary conversations with you right now. And then once we start the ZBA process, we'll be back to you for the formal certificate of appropriateness. Just to refresh everyone, Madison University, we spent a lot of time with you before on the local historic stuff, and the determination was made that the sanctuary was the locally historic protected piece. And we will work through the process. So we are preserving the sanctuary and proposing to add, a 7 to 8 story mixed use residential building with subsurface parking on the project. I'll let the architect speak more to what's been done in the design elements. We've provided new sidewalks, landscaping, green areas, preserving the sight lines from the intersection of Madison and University to the sanctuary. We've tried to make it ADA accessible to multiple entrances. We're working with National Grid on the utilities on Madison, the fire department on emergency ingress, egress, and fire protection from the different sides of the building. So as stated, preliminary conversation. Previously, we talked about the historic nature of the site. Now, this is the first time just to have a refresher on our proposed project. I'm going to kick it over to Aaron here quickly from Landmark Development to give a brief overview of what they would like to do within this building.
Thank you very much, Landmark Preservation Board, for meeting with us today. I'm going to keep this pretty short in light of your time and how long it's taken to get here. So, 2 things that we wanted to discuss today, and I think the first of which is the fact that we haven't made any materially significant changes from the last time we presented this to you. We did make some minor modifications per your prior feedback, and we're hopeful that we're able to work through this successfully in the coming weeks and months. The other thing that I wanted to point out was there's really 2 things that we as the developer here want to ensure we end up with when we finally have a COA here. And the first of which is our general massing and density. And then the second thing is how we integrate with the sanctuary. The seamless integration there is really important for ensuring the continued use and appreciation of this historic monument. And so, I think those 2 things are really what we're going to be focusing on going forward. And I guess finally, I just wanted to, from the whole Landmark team, I think we're all very excited about the inclusion of this into our portfolio. I think this is an awesome project, and being able to incorporate a historic structure like this is something we're all very excited about. And so from here, I'll pass it over to John Harding, our architect, to discuss the details on the project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So thanks for meeting with us today. Happy to be talking about this project and moving it forward. It's been a long road to get here from the initial meetings that we had with everybody. I'm just going to take a minute to walk you through the plans and what we've included in the submission and how the building is kind of configured, and talk a little bit about the integration with the sanctuary in this proposed scheme. So here you're looking at the first floor plan down at grade on Madison Street. So it's important to know that the grade changes significantly over the course of the site. The low point is kind of down at the corner of University and Madison, and then it slopes up about 10 feet along University, about 5 feet along Madison. But then down in that bottom right corner, it's about a 20-foot grade change from Madison, about 25 feet from the corner. So There's a lot of grade that we're trying to work with here and trying to make the building function, make a lot of sense of how it's configured. Obviously, the corner of University Madison is the most critical piece, the most critical viewpoint of this building. It's the historic view of this building, of the existing sanctuary in the temple. So we're trying to do things here that are going to complement that and create new, accessible, but well-integrated entry points, both vehicular and pedestrian. So at Madison Street, right in the corner there, you see the main vestibule and the main vehicular entrance. There's about 15 parking spaces as soon as you drive in that are there for public use, visitor use, short-term drop-off, pickup, that sort of stuff, as well as 2 handicap spots that have access directly to the elevator that goes up into the building, but it goes up directly into the temple space as well. Directly to the left of those parking spaces, as you can see there, is our leasing center in the main office for the management of the building. When you first walk in, there's an open to above space, so two-story space there at the corner that goes up to a lounge space that connects right into the space that goes to the sanctuary. The rest of this floor plate is comprised mostly of parking spaces, and it kind of slopes down a little bit as you go towards University to be able to manage the grades and stay below the finished floor that is connected at University, and then it slopes back up with the hill to go up to the second floor. Down in that bottom corner underneath the main entrance at University, there's a little bit of a bike storage room and some utility spaces as well. So as you move your way up in a vehicle, come up to the second floor where there's a very standard kind of 2-bay parking area with a loop that you can circle and come back down to the grade if you for when you're leaving. And then from University, up on the bottom left of the page here, you can see the main entrance to the residential portion from the campus side to a double height space with some amenity above. You're coming into the lounge space. There's kind of a grand stair. Again, we're trying to work with the grades here, so there's a lot of kind of ups and downs. And there's a double-sided elevator at that location as well to be able to manage accessibility. But you're coming into the main amenity space here that focuses out towards University and out towards the existing temple, really taking advantage of the views to that historic space, but creating a nice little courtyard space, a very intimate courtyard space between the temple and this new building. You might have noticed in CHA's site plan, you can see that there's paving that comes back there, connects to that second door from the amenity space. Exactly. So again, there's a little bit of terracing going on because of all the grade change that happens in this area, and making sure we have a nice kind of big plaza space at the front door here. A great viewing place and a great spot of respite for anybody walking along University that wants to take a break and kind of absorb the views of this existing building. Working your way further up, or I guess, Brian, if you can go back to that second floor real quick. You'll also see, if you zoom in, right, exactly, where the elevator is, anybody who came from those parking spaces downstairs, those visitor and public spaces, you'd be able to come up that elevator and come right into the space that is the connection to the temple. So I think I'll take a minute here just to talk about the sanctuary space and why we broke it at this location. There's a lot of thought and investigation that has gone into our reasoning for this location specifically. The biggest starting point is the front door of the existing temple is really the critical exterior piece to this building. It's a fantastic formal event that we all agree has to be the thing that stays and drives kind of what happens from that point on. So there's the grand stair that comes up, the 3 doors that go in. There's a beautiful vestibule when you come into that space that will be preserved in its entirety, at least in the plans currently. And then when you go past that, you walk into a space, the religious kind of sanctuary space, where all of the adornments are going to be removed, most of those being taken by the congregation, but everything will be going, including the pews. And so the floor there currently is sloped, and that obviously does not work very well for a multi-use space and for the future life of the space, unless we were doing a theater. So that is something that we've been working with. We've had a local structural engineer come in and do multiple investigations of the space, evaluating the from the foundations all the way through the roof. And he's given us his independent thought on where the building should be broken and things that we need to do, including either reinforcement or replacement of that floor to be able to get it to meet the current assembly use 100 pounds per square foot structural capacity. Currently, he thinks it's only rated for about 60 pounds per square foot. So between the leveling of the floor for the space to be able to have its new life, and as well as the restructuring of that, once we level, we figured that the most important thing was to make sure that that level transition happened at the front door, at the top of those grand stairs, and that's the high point. So as we level this floor out, it's going to come up about 2 to 2.5 feet, which means that the other end of the space where the cursor is now, that's where the stage is, and go up into the choir loft and everything behind there. And there's two kind of portals to each side of the stage for doorways that go into the existing buildings from there. All of that space is going to have to be raised that 2 to 2.5 feet, and the stage will become at best a 6-inch step. And we don't feel like that's preserving anything that's of its existing character or the way it functions, including those doors go to stairs directly on their side. It's just, a lot of it is very complicated there, and it doesn't work with a level floor. The structural engineer also said that he felt this was the best spot in the building to kind of transition from what's being kept to what's being removed, which we agreed with. There's a structural grid line there, a couple steel columns that support some major roof elements, and there's a massing shift at that corner as well in the building. So we felt that this was the logical spot. And then looking at the historic components with GPK and kind of the renovations that have happened over time, a lot of the work or the original space that's passed there, some of which was documented really well and some of which was documented through magazine articles. And it's hard to know exactly what was and was not original there. But a lot of it has been revised and reworked, and adding handicap ramps in there. And it's just not, it doesn't have the look and feel and the magnificence of the sanctuary space. So our focus has been on the existing sanctuary space, the big historic volume, and then how we can create a pathway for people to come into that space, either through those front doors or from an accessible standpoint from those handicap parking spaces and through an area that is directly adjacent to that space, so that when you come off those elevators, you're presented with the wow factor of that space right off the bat. In that area that says connection to temple, we'll also have all the kind of support features like the new public bathrooms and a little bit of a lounge space. You can see that little amenity 400 square foot space. There's a little kind of drop down spot there that connects to that open to below space at the front door off of Madison that I was mentioning. So really trying to create a very integrated space of coming in the front door, feeling that the volume kind of connect up and through and into that sanctuary space. If there's an event going on, you'd be able to hear that connection. And creating a really kind of nice procession for people to get from the street, from either street and up and into the building. The rest of the project, as we're moving on, is primarily residential in nature. There's a few units down at that second floor, and then as you move to the third floor, and this is pretty typical floor for what you'd see moving up for the rest of the floors. So floors 3 through 8 are relatively similar. Mostly residential on a 2-story corridor. On the third floor, there is that raised courtyard in the center that will be for residential use only, and that's where the amenities would be for, the students in, whether it's like gaming stuff, bocce, maybe a hot tub, that sort of stuff out there. Working down, looking through at the elevations here, we got a pretty simple palette. We've tried to keep it something that's not going to be overbearing or take over the from the view of the temple itself. We kept a very kind of grayscale palette directly adjacent to the temple, so that the focal point and the coloration that exists there is really about the temple space, and the rest of it's a backdrop. We've added a little bit of color with some wood tone panels that are off to each corner, one signifying the entrance on the one side, and one adding some visual interest along Madison Street. And the rest of it, it's a mixture of fiber cement panels, metal panels, and some masonry down low, especially on Madison Street. But again, here, the focal point was really about making sure that this image, this view, looked beautiful, kept that formal nature of this building, and really gave a building that was a backdrop to complement it and not something that was going to take over and try to compete with the building. So I think that's our presentation for right now, and we look forward to hearing your initial thoughts.
Okay, in the interest of time, I know a lot of our board members have to go, and this is a lot to absorb. I certainly very much appreciate the presentation. And I'm sure board members are going to have a little bit of time to ponder this. There's the initial question of the footprint of the temple that is a little bit different, where you've broken it, and the whole discussion about the interior floor and the ancillary aspects of all of that. So I'm wondering if the best way to proceed would be for the board to have some time to ponder over this. Kate's got your contact information, and we can get back to you in an organized fashion. I think right now, with people's time constraints, if we were all start chiming in now, I don't think it'd be an organized comment. So that would be my suggestion as chair, that the board take some time to really look at this and examine the changes. But before we adjourn, what I would like you to do is talk a little bit about what used to be the exercise area that is now, if you could talk a little bit more about that treatment, the elevations on that, where the fire pump room and the bike storage is.
Sure. So you're referring to in that image, Brian. You can stay on that image right there. You're referring to that area there.
Yeah.
Arna?
Yeah.
Sure. I know that originally when we presented this, we had projected that space out, and we had tried to make it a complementary focal point, something that spoke to the rhythm of the street, and more kind of a modern take on the temple. And we heard your comments. You guys did not like it. We understood that. So we've actually we've shrunk it up quite a bit. It's about a 3-foot projection from the building. We're trying to still keep a massing change there and bringing it, there's 7 stories at that corner. We're trying to really help create a pedestrian scale element. We have the canopy over the door, bringing this down to a 2-story volume that is kind of more engaged with the rest of the building. The color scheme you can see is engaged with kind of the base that wraps around into that courtyard space. It still keeps that kind of cornice line of the bottom of the cornice line of the temple across from it, especially in the courtyard side. So trying to keep some relatable elements, but something that's much more integrated into the building. It's not trying to compete. It's not trying to be the glass box that we talked about before, but there is 2-story volume there, and we'd like to be able to show that activity. It's very likely, I guess we're not really sure what it's going to be for a function yet. We haven't gotten that far. It could be lounge space. It could be fitness center. It's going to be some sort of active residence space, though. But we definitely took your comments to heart, and we've tried to scale that back quite a bit. There used to be about a 10 to 12 foot bump out, I think, and it came closer to the street. So we've really given that back to exterior space, opened the view corridor up to the sanctuary, and tried to make that piece feel much more integrated to the building and not quite the standout that it was before.
Okay. Okay, thank you
One
for that.
comment, Don. In their next presentation, can they show perspective views from the street, looking down from University up Madison?
Right.
They have one here, but if one of the comments that we had made in terms of surrounding the sanctuary building is, what is the street view when you're walking down the street? So a perspective from campus walking down the street would be helpful.
Yeah, this is a big project, and what I'm going to, excuse me, ask the board to do is put all your comments together and send them to Kate. And if we as a board need to get together to speak about this, we will. From a time frame point of view, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, I don't think anything's going to happen in the next 2 weeks.
Nope.
So we can maybe discuss this at our next meeting at more length and develop an organized, coordinated communication back to you so we can continue working on this.
No, we appreciate that. And as I said at the beginning, our next step is with the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then if there's other conversations through a concept level sketch plan conversation, we'd be more than willing to have that in respect of your time here today. So we appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your patience. And I do know that there are going to be, I don't know if I use the word significant, but there are going to be comments. And there are some things that we as a board have to discuss. So we will get that to you in as timely a fashion as possible. The latest I would say would be after our next meeting. And if we can do something before that, that'll be fine.
Okay, perfect. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Board members going forward, any new business or old business? Again, I would ask us all to give our comments and Kate. We could spend another 40 minutes talking about this. We don't have.
Right.
So I appreciate your time. It's 10:30. It's way past noon. And please do get your comments into Kate. Anything else? Thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.